Welcome to what we're currently calling Untitled Project, mostly because we don't have a stable home for this yet, nor really a stable aesthetic. The main thing being this is an excuse for you to talk about yourselves and everything that you're doing. So
Love it.
on Team Untitled Project. So obviously today I was going to ask first question. Are we going by no or are we going by no questions?
Well, the band name when you say it is always no questions.
Okay.
But we kind of need to get into origin story to explain the NO question mark thing.
Okay, awesome. For
I
now,
can say that
no
if you want.
questions. We'll save it. We'll
It's
come
always
back
no
to
questions
it.
when you say it.
Fabulous. Do you guys want to do a quick introduction of yourselves, just for everybody listening?
Sure. So my name's Ben. I play drums in No Questions. Didn't study music at all. I've actually got a degree in psych science and currently doing paramedicine here at Monash at the Peninsula campus. And then just bash the drums and make noise for Aiden.
And for Ben, we're doing opposite mics. Well, I'm Aiden, spelled A-D-Y-N, and I play guitar, but it doesn't always sound like guitar, and I kind of sing as well sometimes. And together we try to sound like more people than just two instruments. But yeah, so I did study music, but I'm also like a total Monash dropout. So you're winning us all the brownie points here because you're still here. Made it to the start of third year and then decided to do full-time session guitar. So being a responsible, normal guitarist for work, and I get to do this for fun.
Excellent. Fantastic. While we're on it then, I feel like a good intro would be let's talk about no versus no questions. Let's talk about that band name.
So the story here is that this was initially, I guess, a three-piece. We had a bassist friend who was covering the low end, and he has this story where we don't really know the details, but he had an interesting interaction with someone outside his dad's place who I think they wasn't sure what was said, and he was obviously substance affected. And then he comes back in the morning, and on the hood of his dad's Prius, this white Prius, he had spray painted in black paint NO question mark in exactly the way you see it in the logo. We had someone do a trace of it.
This is incredible.
We have no idea what the story was. Like, it wasn't really an answer to a question or anything, but we were like, okay, there must be a name in this, because at this point we're trying to name the project. And Max, who's the bassist at the time, goes, oh, well, I mean, you could call it No Questions. So at the moment, we're still trying to figure out whether to roll with the full version or just the little abbreviated thing. It's almost like 21 Pilots doing the T-O line P thing. Like,
exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, you've already created a language for a fan base that nobody else understands.
Trying to, which is tricky because when you're trying to get people on side, it's a question of whether it's like too much to explain. But we've had like, it's so weird. Half the people we talk to about it are like, keep it, it's the coolest thing ever. And half the people are like, I don't get it. But now I do. I feel like it gets people talking. I'd be interested to know your thoughts.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm on team both names. I mean, first thing I looked at for you guys was Spotify. And then I was immediately like, what am I searching on Spotify here? No questions, no. But like, I don't know, something about it. And I think it does blend with the vibe of your music. Like, it's got this, there's a mystery about it that like makes you do a little bit of work as a listener to decide if you're like on this team.
That's the exciting part.
And I mean,
once you're in, you're in.
100%, yeah. And I think that your songs, I say songs plural, I've only listened to one.
There is only one, but there will be a second very, very soon.
Fantastic. From what I have heard, I think that you sort of ask that of your listeners of your music anyway. Like, there's thinking involved.
That's beautiful.
When
Thank
I'm hearing
you.
it.
I hope so. We're trying to make stuff that's interesting on the 50th listen.
Yeah,
or like,
absolutely.
that makes you want to come back for listen 7 because you were like, what the hell was that in the end of verse 2? How did they do that with
100%.
guitar?
Yeah. I think I've listened to it minimum 5 times.
That's a massive
maybe
achievement.
More.
So we're very
But I was
grateful.
listening 4 layers, 100%.
Thank you,
First time
yeah.
I was like, all right, first listen is for vibes.
Yeah.
It's for like the image, what's being communicated.
Oh, thank you.
But I feel like from a standpoint, I mean, I've got like a literary background and I was very excited by your song because it felt like reading a book. Like the first time I get a story, the second time, you know, I mean, the equivalent in music of grammar would be something like rhythm or something like that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I was excited to pull it apart, and I was excited that it felt like you guys wanted that. Because I think that there's music out there, you know, that is designed just to be heard and be enjoyed on that first listen.
For sure.
And then you're sort of just that annoying person who wants to pull it apart. But this song sounds like, no, I'm supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, not that we want to make it nerdy enough that it's only for musos, because I think that's kind of the opposite of the goal here. The intent is sort of to take the, I guess, the stylings and the songwriting of that sort of mid 2000s alt rock that we both grew up on and are obsessed with. Like, yes, we did listen to a lot of Royal Blood growing up, but I think combined with the fact that I've spent the last couple of years really obsessed with interesting sound design for guitar, and especially playing fretless has been a game changer for me to go, wow, this sounds like the inside of my head. Like all this EDM I listened to sort of in that like early high school period when you're first attaching yourself to stuff, all these slidey synths. So I guess the intent isn't to drive people away with being too weird. It's just to have something that's got enough interest while also being a good song in its core. So the upcoming stuff, there's a segue.
Beautiful.
We're hoping to lean a little bit more into like, this is a really catchy 3-minute pop song with the same intent, like through the like putting it into the no questions machine and turning the handle, and then out spits this thing where it's like, okay, this is the identity on drums and guitar and hopefully vocals as well is pretty unique, but it also like, if you're into the Foo Fighters, you'll like the song here. You know?
That's a very, I love that analogy, the no questions machine. That's very fun. In terms of like building an identity as musicians, I'm curious for, I mean, both your takes, I mean, coming from more of like a less technical musical background, but then you also working as like a sessional guitarist, you're hearing a lot of different influences. You're sort of both sitting on opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Some may say too many.
How does that influence building something that feels true to you guys while still having this like experimental time?
That's a great question. Well, in terms of combining our influences and having something that feels true to both of us. Well, I mean, the process for a lot of this stuff, I guess, that we're playing live now and it's been there from the first show to now, has always been like, I've written these songs on an acoustic guitar and like one vocal. And then it's like, okay, how can we arrange this in a freakishly interesting way so that like, A, the people who are interested in that kind of thing have something to dig into, but B, we really feel like we're doing something new with it. So I guess the point where we really combine is bringing that stuff into the room and going, okay, how can we break this? So even stuff like, I should say the first single that's out kind of went the reverse way. Maybe you can talk a bit about this, where we were just jamming in a room at 3 Phase, which is like the best rehearsal space ever, like 2 years ago. And I had figured out this thing where to get super nerdy, you can have an LFO in the Helix processor that I use that sort of does a rhythm for you. Okay. So like letting the board drive the song as opposed to me playing rhythm guitar. Okay. And then that forces Ben here to play in time with like an automatic thing, which is an absolute, can I swear on this? Yeah. An absolute mind fuck to execute. I don't know if you want to talk about that and how we managed to do that. And it was still a challenge live.
Yeah. Look, it's not the easiest song to play. That 3 Phase, I actually found the recording.
Oh, do you have that?
I found it somewhere the other day. I heard it.
You gotta send it to me.
It was like, I remember we went in and I said to Aiden on the day that, I wanted to work on my technical skills and bring like, I only bought 3 drums, but it was really because I just couldn't be fucked moving my whole kit.
One was a cymbal.
Yeah. So it was like, it was a kick snare.
With double kicks and then hat.
Yeah, and a hat. And if you listen to Talk to Me, like most of that track is just this like fucked kind of drum beat.
It's almost like this beat repeating thing. Like we took what you did with this kick snare hat thing, and then I went in Ableton and made it even more crazy. Yeah. Like with sort of almost like a ratchet thing that you hear DJs use, where like I'll take samples of like a quarter note or an eighth note worth of stuff and then copy paste it, so it changes the kick pattern. But it's almost this like, I don't know, I'm so bad with electronic genres, but is that like breakcore where it's like super kick and snare pattern heavy, or like drum and bass almost?
No idea.
Anyway,
you have to ask like Jack Dobson.
Jack, tell us.
Yeah, and that drum beat came, I think, what kind of, because it is difficult, and especially locking into Aiden and stuff, because it's got a lot of ghost notes and stuff playing in it. But my family background is my dad's side is Syrian. So I'm half Arabic, and then my mum's from Queensland, hence the Aussie look.
Yeah, okay.
And if you listen to that beat, it's actually like a very simple, very common Arabic beat.
Which blew my mind as well, because I'm like, wow, this is so cool. We don't hear any of this.
Compared to like Bach or Beethoven, it's like much more interesting.
It's kind of just like dum da da dum da dum da with a shit ton of ghost notes and funky hand techniques playing over the top of it. But having that that underlying beat, like, I guess is what helps lock into it.
Yeah, the thing that we've been trying to figure out for a long time now is that for the verse of that song, the processing is doing almost like a electronic music sidechain thing where the kick is carving out a hole in the guitar prayer. So it's hitting like on the offbeat, like so all band has to go off live until we sorted out playing with click, which has been a huge help. Was
like last week.
Like last week. You're catching us like when we're starting to figure this out. We got a gig on Saturday. We got to get it right for. But again, technical challenges. Shout out to Kaylin Edwards, who is our soundy, who has been a massive help in solving like the how do we get MIDI from this thing to this thing, and like what cable do we need for this. All these things that you don't get into music to learn, but have to do.
It would be so lost.
Yeah. But it's just been a huge technical hurdle. So I guess now what we're excited about, just to put a bow on all that nerdy discussion, is like we're getting to the end of the phase where we've been solving all of these problems for like the last couple of years to execute this thing that like by nature is pretty difficult technically to execute. Like we're covering a lot of ground. Ben plays bass for half the set on sample pad live, which is really fun because it means I can solo over drum and bass with one person accompanying me. And it's like, it totally opens things up in a way that we're really excited about. And we think that's like, it's not revolutionary in itself. Like people have used SPDs before, but I think what we're trying to do with it is have a more open approach to like, okay, what is the role of like the drummer in the band? What is the role of the guitarist in the band? Like, so there's times where it sounds like the opposite of that. So I guess what we're excited about now is we're getting to the end of like the solving problems phase and into like the check out what we've done phase. Where it's like, here's singles 2 and 3, which we're both super excited about, which is sort of our next few months. And hopefully some cool shows and hopefully an awesome summer. It's been a bit of an intense winter, even just personally for both of us. So I think we're excited to have things open up and play a bunch of rock shows in the weather, in the warm weather.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I think is a little bit overlooked maybe nowadays, that time taken to figure something out without being observed.
That's exactly right.
Because I think, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that has come from people having new access to self-producing, self-releasing. And I mean, obviously, social media, everybody's their own marketing team as well.
Also a big learning curve.
Yeah, well, 100%. I think I've asked almost everybody that I've talked to so far about that, because I mean, I was just thinking how nice it was that you've got this was it Kaylin, sound person?
Yeah, Kaylin, Kaeec LAN. We'll put him in the description or something.
Yeah, that you guys are sort of allowed to be musicians.
Oh yeah.
Because I think that probably a big reason why people don't pursue this all the way is because they're like, well, I just wanted to play music, I just wanted to perform. I haven't thought about this technical side of things. Let me shelf what I was going to ask. Let's talk about social media a little bit.
Sure, I'd love to.
What was your existing relationship with social media, and how has that changed as trying to be working professionals on a platform?
Amazing question. Do you want to take this one for a sec, or?
Yeah, I think like a big thing, like previously, Anna and I both have our individual Instagrams that are mostly just music stuff. And I think the hardest thing for us that I found was, you know, obviously when we hadn't released anything or hadn't really like said that, because we've been doing this for probably about 2 or 3 years.
I think maybe 2.5 now at this point. From the very start of like, okay, we want to do a band.
Yeah, wow.
So before like all that time, there was no social media presence. Yeah, it was just working. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, we're going to announce that we're doing this. And then finding that fine line of not putting things out when they're not ready.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to hit as well as it is, you know, it could be, but also still being present and still like showing that we are here and we're not just
that's it. And trying to make something as exciting as possible while still having stuff like in the chamber. Yeah. You know, so I guess our process now, I mean, from the very start, I've been massively inspired by bands like King Gears, who have 2 albums in the bank before they've dropped their current one. Yeah. Like they're so ahead. And maybe they're even not that far ahead from what you think they are, but it's like they're always one step in front of their audience in a really exciting way. Yeah. I've always kind of romanticized that idea of like, this is a world that's constantly has stuff ready for you and they're just kind of drip feeding it. Yeah. So I guess right now, I mean, not to completely blow the illusion that I'm getting excited about creating by talking about what's coming up next, but like, we're in the phase of getting a lot of stuff ready. So for us, that means again, with socials, getting video content really right, because if we're in a position right now where we're like, you only get to be 23, 24 once and have a proper shot at this.
Yeah.
And we really, really, really believe in the music after a couple of years of like nose to the grindstone, like how do we make these songs as perfect, as good as we can get them and as close to the sound in our heads as possible. Now we're like, okay, how do we help this find the audience? And we're so lucky to have socials as a tool for that, particularly because a lot of this stuff has, at least for us, like an associated visual world. And we're very lucky to work with an amazing videographer whose name's Jordan Blanche, who also has an artist project under who we both know.
Yes, and he hasn't released music in ages.
I'm trying to get him to, because we record. I pay him for cooking lessons with guitar recording, and we have like unreleased stuff. He's a really close mate, and I'm very grateful that he takes time out of shooting like proper commercials for Bonds and I shouldn't talk about that one. Stuff that's coming up. Anyway, massive like corporate and also music video like producer presence. So we're super grateful to have him working with us. And he did all the visuals for Talk to Me. And there is a full visualizer coming out for that in the next few weeks. Awesome. And then all the second single stuff's on the way now. So
cool.
That helps a lot in terms of like making sure it comes across as quality. Like there's almost this assumed, so I'm rambling now, but there's almost this sort of, you have to hit a certain hurdle of quality, like past the threshold for it to be taken seriously. Yeah, but also I think there's a push right now for things on either end of the spectrum where it's like, if I have this beautifully shot, amazingly color corrected video, it's like 15 seconds of the Spotify canvas that gets pinned, and it's like, okay, they can do that. And then the next thing in your feed is like a acoustic guitar and vocal with the phone mic and the shaky Gen Z start of the video. Both of them hit equally as hard, and the crap one probably performs better.
Oh, definitely.
But they're both necessary to show that you're taking it seriously. So that's our thing we're trying to get over right now.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, huge spike in music videos that look like they've been shot on a Sony Handycam.
But it's amazing.
But yeah, and
for
I
some
feel
styles
like
that works beautifully.
It's that illusion of authenticity, 100%. I'm like...
Sometimes illusion. Sometimes people just put it out there straight away without too much afterthought.
I'm thinking of like... Oh, this is such an outdated reference.
No, that's okay.
Olivia Rodrigo's on her Sour album releasing, I think it was Trader, the music video that was shot on some sort of handheld.
I haven't seen it, but maybe like I get what you mean.
It's a bad music video. I love Olivia Rodrigo, but this music video was like, we need a pretty something to go with this. And I feel like it definitely helps in that sort of parasocial relationship that, I mean, whatever your individual feelings are towards that is a necessary sort of part of this process.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I'm no stranger to romanticizing the artists that inspire me and like wanting a personal relationship in that parasocial thing.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually I think we're gonna get to a stage where like hopefully people want to learn the parts from the songs. I mean, how cool would it be to have someone learn the Talk to Me like kick pattern and stuff? That'd be fun. So yeah, I guess maybe having just enough illusion for it to be exciting, but also we want to like make friends and like meet bands around town and like I don't know. We're not too worried about people caring too much about our stuff before we want them to, because you have to try so hard to get anyone to give a fuck about what you do these days.
I mean, you're in like an exciting space where you are now that I think that that authenticity is very natural, and not something that you have to be concerned about at the moment, you know, in terms of that being like...
You don't want the Chapel Roan saga where it's like...
Oh gosh, that poor
She goes like 10% too far and then gets absolutely trashed for like trying to be a human, so...
Yeah, and I mean, how old is she? She's still in her 20s. She's
I think so, which is scary.
Yeah.
Better get moving.
I think on that, I'm really curious... I don't know, this might be a dark question. You can totally skim over it.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, how do you balance having worked on something like this for so long and not having an audience, not being observed in that process? I mean, we talked about the pros, but I mean, as an artist, as a musician, you want to be heard, first off. You want somebody to relate to what you're creating.
100%.
How do you balance that sort of degree of isolation, I guess, in that mixing process where you know that it's a long-term investment?
Oh my god, yeah.
But maybe there's a sense that you're losing something still in that process.
I think for me, it's because I'm very much, like I said before, I don't want to put something out. Like, you've only got one shot to put something out, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm very much, I want this to go out when I'm completely happy with it.
Yep.
I think like most people would know as well, when we all try to film some sort of music thing to put on Instagram, it's not one take. It's probably like 3 hours of 500 takes.
What do you mean? All my future guitar stuff is like take one.
Yeah. So
that's what I was talking about.
For me, it's very much like, you know, I only want it to go out when it's ready.
Yeah.
And that drive of knowing what it's going to be like in the future, because I know that we're going to, you know, land it. And
We're both hear it in our head.
Yeah.
I think it's the thing that we know what we're going for. And for some weird reason, this guy got it on day one.
Yeah.
We can go way into origin story if you really want to, but like just this whole thing of we're both fighting for the same thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. I mean, of course, the end goal with this is to maybe find an audience that's excited about it, because I think it'd be the honor of our lives to, if we could have, I think, talking like really broad goals, like have some kind of influence on rock music in quotes, you know, to go like, okay, what's next? Because as much as there's exciting stuff happening in like the guitar and drum, like, you know, sort of instrumentally, there's cool stuff happening in that space.
Yeah.
Like, just go on Instagram and you'll see a million people who are like probably way better than either of us at what we do. But
especially when they're like 6 years old.
Yeah, and you go like, okay, why are we even trying?
But I'm done.
But I think just to clarify, like the point of this isn't to join that arms race.
Yeah.
Like what we're doing is trying to sound like ourselves.
Yeah.
So the thing that gets us really excited and then is the drive behind, we don't have an audience yet, but the reason we do it is because we're like, oh, this sounds like us.
Yeah.
And I can't search for this on Spotify unless I go play our song.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Because for the last couple of years even, I mean, like doing session work is a great way to get burned out on generic stuff, because you're forced to play Valerie every week with someone new.
Oh yeah.
But
I think especially I would say Melbourne indie scene, and I love it, but there is a sound that comes out of
we
that.
can go down this route if you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, without wanting to get too, you know, warrior about this, like I think.
I mean, yeah, disclaimer, we know that everybody has a place in the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
So
and I have friends who make the kind of music who we might be about to talk about. But like, I think definitely we're coming from a standpoint of we would love to hear something that makes you go like, what I imagine it would have been like to hear the riff to Smells Like Teen Spirit in 91.
Yeah.
When you just come out of the 80s hair rock phase, and then to have someone come along and go and shatter the glass. Yeah. And go, sorry guys, we're moving in here. Get out of the way. That would be cool, because I think a moment like that is it's rare and it's precious, and I've sort of romanticized that for a long time, and the artists that I loved to go like, it's announcing we are here. Like,
I think that lines up really well though, like where the industry is at the moment, because I think that we've really, you know, I mean, naturally from COVID, we had even pre-COVID, I'm thinking there was a big acoustic boom, like Ed Sheeran, Shawn Mendes, man and a guitar on stage. We love that. Yeah. And now I feel like we are moving way, way back into that full artist persona. I mean, Sabrina Carpenter has got this whole burlesque thing going on, Chapel Roan.
Which is great.
Which is awesome, and I think is bringing back a degree of theatre in live performance that's been really missing. But I mean, to speak on like that, the 90s grunge movement coming right after the 80s, I mean, we're in a little bit of an 80s renaissance. I mean,
feels a little bit like it.
We're going to move into a grunge period
It'd
pretty
be nice.
soon.
I mean, the whole DIY thing is so oversaturated at this point, with people making like punk and bedroom rock that you can do in like a week, which is amazing, and I'm glad that exists. Yeah. Because it's enabled people to make that kind of thing. But I don't know, maybe what we're looking for is something that's got a certain amount of like professional sheen, but still feels like it's trying to be fresh. Yeah. It's hard to describe in words what we're going for, but if you listen to the first single, that opening 30 seconds is maybe a good way to encapsulate the sound in our heads. And it took maybe a year to get there.
Yeah, I was so excited that I think it's over a minute of instrumental before there are any vocals in that song.
We were a bit scared about that.
I love that.
Our videographer hated it.
I was so
it's like, what do you want me to do with this amount of space?
I was so
Aiden, make a shorter song.
Excited. Well, exactly.
We are about to as well. So he gets he gets what he wants.
Yeah, absolutely, I can see that working well. But I was really excited at being made to wait in an age where I get everything I want whenever I want it, as soon as I want it.
That's a really optimistic perspective. I hope it's not like, I'm so bored by this, someone starts singing.
I think it was like being, this is very, very cliche, but I think it was like being led down a windy path I couldn't see the end of.
That's amazing.
And I mean, realistically, like I could have seen the end of it by skipping forward. But I enjoyed, it was just very, new to have somebody be like, I'm taking you somewhere and you just have to trust me.
And the amount of people who have been like, when are you going to get a live keyboard player to play the intro? I'm like, no, it's guitar. That's been like a yes moment, because that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, first thing I thought of when I heard it was Radiohead. I was like,
That's a huge compliment.
oh, for
I don't know if
sure.
that hits for you, but like,
I mean, contextually, I would put Radiohead as like, I mean, obviously still sort of coming out of that grunge era. But I mean, there's so much like jazz in Radiohead and so much genre bending that still somehow stays very true to their brand and
that's true.
rock as a whole. Listening to your stuff, I was like, this is a challenge. And I don't mean to detract from it not being valuable on the first listen, because it absolutely was. But yeah, it was something that made me start to think. And I think what you said before was absolutely smack bang on it, that I couldn't search anything else on Spotify that did that.
That in itself is a massive compliment. I mean, I'm rambling at this point, but I don't know if you connected that whole thing of like, I guess what we're trying to do here is sort of put a line in the sand behind everything that's been done to a certain point and go, if you want to come with us, you can.
Yeah.
It's scary over here and we don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty fun.
Absolutely.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. I think it's
I never
like,
want to stop you from talking.
no,
Go.
I'm always shocked, like even sometimes when we're playing gigs or stuff, like I said before, how with people asking about keys, is that you listen to that track and it's so like there's so much going on, but it came from being live without actually doing anything computer wise.
It is like at the core of it, it's one live take with a few extra processings of the same DI track. Like for the guitarists out there, like it's one DI performance with like a little bit of double tracking, just so it doesn't sound smaller stereo wise. But even that whole intro is just one guitar performance, like processed probably 4 or 5 different ways.
Yeah, right.
I still sit behind the kit when we play and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
If I can scare
so
Ben,
if I don't know what's going on, I don't know.
If I can scare Ben, then we're doing well. But the stuff this guy is able to do with 4 limbs, sometimes more, it feels like, is unbelievable.
Sign of a good drummer for sure.
That's it.
But like you said, I mean, what is a drummer? I'm curious because you're both such proficient instrumentalists. I mean, that's a given. When you're creating something, do you ever have to stop yourself from going like a little bit too hard? Like
maybe
past a point of translation, maybe for a generic audience?
Well, I mean,
generic is a mean word. I just mean an initial audience.
I want to hear your thoughts on this because playing parts live is always a concern for me because I've got to figure out what I can sing and play at the same time. But where your focus is a little bit less split, do you have the same kind of thing where you got to hold yourself back?
I think, like, for me, drum-wise, when I started working a lot more on drums coming out of high school and stuff, everyone went down the jazz path. Like, a lot of my mates went to VCA and Monash and stuff.
Right, gotcha.
And at that point, I started to fall in love with, like, the whole, like, gospel drum playing.
Yeah, okay.
And so incorporating that sort of stuff with the jazz that I was playing with high school, that's helped with speed and coordination. I feel like a lot of the stuff we play isn't really, like, some of the songs are fast.
Yeah.
And
you'll hear him soon. Come to a gig.
Yeah. And like Kane said, there's a lot going on, but for most of the part, the drums are very, like, in a lot of the other songs, very rocky and laid back. And I think, like, there was a song that we did early on, which hopefully is going to come out if someone can be convinced.
Oh yeah.
I think there's like, I think there's one fill in the whole song, and the rest is just a laid back beat.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
we're being very cryptic because
the fill doesn't even need to be in there.
That's true. Yeah. On the same thing of like trying to not overplan yourself, where it's like I could throw everything at this and make it really interesting for like make it a muso's song. Yeah. Which is again not the goal. Like we sort of want to be, I guess fan base wise, if you want to analyze it, like if you like bands like Muse and like Queens of the Stone Age and like I don't know if you get heavy, maybe some Caius, like all that sort of stuff. That's kind of home base for us. Frequencies wise, you know, like that's what you expect, and I think we just want to approach it a bit differently. But so I guess the songwriting always starts there, and a lot of these, basically all of them, I think every song so far has started with a really quietly played acoustic guitar in an apartment and a sheet of lyrics. So what I'm playing is almost always like 80% of what I end up playing live. with some tweaks being made to like make sure I'm feeding the right notes to the bass chain, and
Right.
like, just because the processing is so strange, I have to always be considering like, what am I sending to each part of the signal chain here? So in some ways I'm like restricted by the setup, even though it sounds big. I have to have a pretty simplistic approach to it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'm playing the vocal melody on guitar, because I mean, starting this, I definitely wasn't the most confident singer until even maybe the last few months.
Okay.
And you can hear that on the first single. And as much as I'm happy with what we put out, I'm definitely proud of what you're going to hear on the new stuff.
Yeah.
As
Right.
compared to that, maybe just
Yeah.
as a result of having done a dozen gigs with
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
live,
Exactly.
and just getting like feeling it's more in the wheelhouse now. So
Yeah.
always trying to be conscious of like, I want to sit at like 70% of technical proficiency or lower live. You know, like I want some headroom there. I'm a big believer in that idea.
Absolutely.
And that translates to work stuff as well for session things. Like, I don't really want to be up there sweating.
Yeah.
I kind of want to feel like I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to that point where these songs are feeling comfortable enough for me to look over at Ben while I'm singing, and I'm on autopilot, and the lyrics are sort of not thinking about it, and the guitar's happening when they'll be thinking about it, and I can go, this is fun.
Fantastic.
As opposed to going like, oh God, what's the next section? I'm like, oh, I got to slide to here, and
Yeah.
trying to feel at ease is the end goal.
That's really exciting.
Long-winded answer, but
No, I'm all for long-winded
awesome.
answers.
I'm glad.
Makes my job much easier.
Nice. Let's cut this up.
I would love to circle back
Sure.
and talk a little bit about origins
Sure.
and how you guys got started. I mean, you mentioned sort of just kind of instantly sharing a brainwave. How does that sort of thing happen?
You're better at telling the story than me.
Yeah, you could probably actually find the message. I think it was during COVID.
Should go back.
Yeah. So Aiden and I were in a band that started during COVID.
Very briefly.
Yeah. It was kind of like this band got started, and then that's how we hadn't actually met yet. It was just over Messenger.
Through some of that community that you were talking about before that went to VCA.
Yeah.
It's sort of in that jazz world.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
they wanted to do like a rock thing.
Yeah.
So they hit up this guy because he can do both of those.
Yeah. So, anyway, we're in this band, and Aiden sent something to the group and was like, oh, I have this idea. And I don't know if like getting shut down is the right, like it kind of did, but basically the idea was dismissed. It was like, you know, it's not what we're going for in this group. So then I listened to it and thought, it's pretty cool.
Basically an early demo of one of the songs that'll be on that first sort of LP.
Yeah. And so I privately messaged Aiden, and at this point still we didn't know each other. We just knew each other through the group chat. And I said, this is really cool. Let's come back to it in a bit. And then it was probably a couple of months later.
Sort of dancing between lockdowns. We're
Yeah.
like, okay, when can we meet up and jam on this? I don't actually remember the first rehearsal. Do you? Was it? It would have been at yours, right?
It was very...
I don't have a specific memory of what we played first.
No, I just remember I'm a huge fan of Billie Eilish's drummer, Andrew Marshall. And
Legend.
Yeah, he's very, very good at hybrid drumming.
Yeah.
His whole setup is hybrid drumming.
Gotcha.
And so if you look at the way Mike Hits designs some of like this little twinkles of Andrew Marshall.
Twinkles.
Yeah.
Nods.
I love that. No twinkles.
And so I had that all set up at the time. And then I remember Aiden, because it was during lockdown, would send me some stuff and it would be like, okay, let's just work out some drumming stuff. And I think that's kind of how that whole hybrid idea sort of arose a bit more, because it was just like during lockdown.
Yeah.
And we were doing everything online.
Yeah.
And so, you know, playing electronic stuff was easier to just...
Yeah, well, I mean, and you had time to experiment as well, because
Yeah.
I guess that would have been new for you at the time. A lot of the time it's like, I'll have this idea for an arrangement where I really want a separate part to be possible, so I can play something that I don't need to feed a low note to, so the bass chain knows what to do, which means often I'll give Ben like a sample of a 2-bar bass thing that he can cue, which is kind of in service of this thing that we're trying to do where we don't use playback too much.
Okay.
It's an inevitability for some stuff, like when we produce tracks, there's background layers and vocals and stuff that I want in there, so there's elements of that, but I guess this mission to like get everything live as much as possible, just so it's kind of bulletproof. And even if tech breaks down, even if we have to play like a DIY show at like in someone's garage, which we did like a month ago, we can still play with like a crappy PA in the corner, and like my amps, and that's enough, you know, and we can still get by with just 2 people.
Yeah.
So in like reverence of the school, the people who have done that, like all the White Stripes through Royal Blood, through everyone who's attempted the 2-piece thing, they've all had their own version of it. I think the thing that inspires me, just a little bit of a tangent, but the thing that inspires me about that is how connected everything feels as a result.
Yeah.
Because even though it's a restriction, it means that like whatever I play sounds really, it's almost like 3 other people are reinforcing me at the same time and going, yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it sounds like 2 guitars and a bass at once, and there's interesting effects and all that. So
yeah,
hopefully it comes across as sounding solid, especially with the hybrid drum stuff. So
yeah.
Origins wise, I guess that's what we're going for, just to sound like we mean it, even though there's only 2 of us saying what we're saying.
I love it. Let's put our money where our mouth is.
That's it.
I'm going to introduce, this is our segment called Budget Cuts.
I'm so excited for this.
We are sitting on the floor, so if you couldn't tell already, we are running on tight financial support.
That's okay.
And we would love a theme song, but we can't afford professionals.
What are we going to do?
We would love you. You're professionals. These are not professional instruments. We would love you to, with the tools provided, come up with any kind of little jingle for us. We have no standard of quality.
Gotcha.
So just have fun. You can recruit me if you need, but I would be very, very intimidated to do anything next to both of you. So go to town.
Okay, cool. Well, I was kind of hoping for something with strings.
We did have a ukulele. I don't think we do
If that's around, you'll make me feel very comfortable. But what have we got?
No.
Are we going
You have an accordion, which is maybe the closest you could get.
There's strings inside this. What have we got? What makes sound?
Pull it apart.
Gotcha. What can I...
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay, something with strings.
Just skid her.
Let's write a punk song.
Everyone, this is Mia.
Hi, Mia.
Hi.
Write a punk song on ukulele.
Awesome. I'm going to find a mic stand. Are we getting audio from this as well?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. It's in tune. Does this need to have lyrics as well?
Yeah, up to you. Considering we're called Untitled Project, there are no lyrics in our name. But you can do whatever you want.
Maybe like a yeah. Okay.
I love that.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're assembling a kit here. What's going to be the kit?
Alright, so. There's a bell.
We're just going to wing it?
It's always a try.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I gotta work out my kit first.
Okay, I said put our money where our mouth is, and I was like half joking. Yeah, any evidence to go and listen to your music was all there. Imagine what they can do with real instruments. Last little bit, anything you would like to plug, please let us know.
Yeah, so we've got our first single came out probably about a month ago called Talk to Me. That is on Spotify at the moment. Go listen to that. The music video should be out now
By the time you watch
by
this.
watching this. And then we've got our second single in the works at the moment, which again, depending on when you're listening to this, it could be out, might not be out, but go listen to it anyway.
Either way, go check our Instagram for our latest gig, because we're playing once every couple of weeks. And if you want us to support you, maybe you could send us a DM on Instagram, because we want to play more shows. That'd be fun.
I agree.
Try to make new friends.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks
This
for
has
having
been
us.
Our pleasure.
You're an
Incredible.
unbelievable interviewer. Such great questions.
Thank you. This song I want to use for many, many things.
Hopefully we got good audio.
I think so. Absolutely. All right.
Thanks so
We're on
much.
it.